and I'm not trying to scare you, but we've learned so much through, creating this business, that really you guys carry a lot more liability than you even probably know. And so hiring your own EMT nurse can potentially add more liability to you than without them. And so we as a team, because we have a team, we have a director of medicine, who is over all of our PAs and NPs on the wedding weekends, wedding weeks, event weeks. They carry the liability. We as a team carry that liability so you guys don't have to.
This is the Wine and Dine Me podcast. Forget the etiquette. No rules, just real talk. Today, I'm joined by Caroline Brown and Julie Livingston, the co-founders of EventDox. EventDox is a concierge event medicine service created for elevated weddings and private events where discretion, preparedness, and continuity are essential. Their work sits at the intersection of thoughtful event production and high-level medical care, filling a gap that many planners, venues, and families quietly navigate behind the scenes. How do you handle medical moments calmly, professionally, and without disrupting the guest experience? Julie comes to this work with the eye and instinct of a photographer who has been inside countless event days and has seen medical needs arise in real time. Caroline brings a strategic, relationship-driven background and a career path shaped by reinvention, ambition, and deep trust building. Today, we're talking about what event medicine actually means, how it differs from traditional EMT coverage, why discretion matters so much in private events, what planners and hosts should be thinking about before something goes wrong, and what it looks like to build a new company from lived experience and industry need. Welcome, Caroline and Julie. Well, I always like to start with how people actually got here, because the polished, pretty version that we see online doesn't always tell the full story. So, Julie, let's start with you. As a photographer, you're already inside so many wedding days and event days. And what were you seeing that first started that idea? Like, there needs to be a better way to handle medical needs at events.
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you for having us on. We're so excited to be here. Yeah, it started about, I've been in weddings for about 20 years and in the luxury space for about 12 to 14 now. And the last 10 years, I'm shooting all these gorgeous weddings where every layer is so thoughtfully planned by you amazing wedding planners. And I noticed my brides, my grooms, guests were either getting sick during the reception or somebody was missing for a while. And I'd ask, what's going on? Oh, she's in
Yeah.
the bathroom throwing up. Or her Aunt Susie cut her foot. So they're all tending to her. Oh, there's an ambulance here. Why is there an ambulance here? Oh my gosh. And so honestly, all of that put together, I was like, wait a minute. Why is there not a doctor here? Why is there not someone who can tend to these guests and couples and family members without them having to call an ambulance or leave the reception? And so it just felt like a missing piece to me, a missing layer that would help you guys as planners, would help the couples and the families and everybody just have a better experience because I'm always, as a photographer, even I'm trying to make the guest experience better, being helpful to people and planning teams and all of that. I was like, this is missing. So it's always been in the back of my head, and it wasn't until I met Caroline that I was like, "Oh, maybe we can actually do this." So, yeah.
So, Caroline, you mentioned your career has pivoted about every 10 years. So, what was it about this concept that made you feel like, okay, this is next for me?
Yeah, it's such a good question, Reagan. I think sometimes the universe just puts things in your path at the right time. So Julie and I actually met because our daughters are classmates in preschool together. And so it felt very much meant to be. And when she started sharing with me concerns and what was going on at weddings and her own experiences, and I shared with her that I was kind of leaving traditional corporate healthcare and starting my own business and getting into concierge medicine. She was like, wait, we got to talk about this. And so, for me, I love new adventures. I love learning new things. And so it just seems like about every 10 years, I kind of go on a new adventure. And when Julie and I talked and started talking about this concept of concierge event medicine, it just became really intriguing to me because if you go to a large concert or a sporting event, like there's always a first aid tent and things like that. And so the more I learned about the industry and this missing layer, the more intrigued I was, because I think everyone deserves to be happy and healthy on the biggest day of their life. And if we can help with that, that's incredibly rewarding. So it was just kind of the next extension of my career, and wanting to help people have the best time of their lives on a really important day.
That's great. And I'm so glad you mentioned the EMT tent that all of us have seen at sporting events and concerts. But what you're providing is so much more nuanced. And I think that's the real thing that people need to understand, because they may think, oh, on-site event, health or emergency services, that's where their mind goes because that's what they know and they've seen. But what you're doing is much more nuanced, and you are approaching it with an understanding of the guest experience, not disrupting the atmosphere, the privacy, the flow of the event. So, how do you explain EventDox to someone who's never heard of concierge event medicine before, but has this concept of the concert EMT tent?
Yeah, thanks to Julie, we're a hospitality company that does medicine, not the other way around. And
Mm.
because of her experience in events and being able to really understand what the expectations are, the level of production, how important discretion is, all of those things, we've positioned our company in a way that really meets the needs of guests, attendees, principals, but does it in a way that feels elevated and
Mhm.
that doesn't disrupt the flow, feel, design of the event. And so, for instance, all of our providers, whether it's a nurse practitioner, a physician assistant, or a physician that's on site at your event, they dress in event attire. And so that allows them to blend in. So there's no like EMT uniform and bright orange medic bag and all of that stuff, because we think it's really important for discretion and integration. And then, we take a white glove service approach. And so however the client and the planner feel like we should integrate or be present or show up, we do. And so that can look very different for different clients depending on what they want. They may want our provider kind of roaming during the reception and keeping an eye on a specific guest who's medically complex, or a bridesmaid who's really pregnant, or whatever the case may be. Or in some cases, they really want us to blend into the background and be available if anything comes up. But that's really what differentiates us as a business. And we also only use providers who have emergency medicine experience and who are also trained in luxury events and weddings. And so that allows us to really bring a different approach.
And so I guess, do you ask your clients going into the event, like what kind of presents to have? Or I guess my question is, how will guests know that you're there? Or do you not want them to know you're there until they're needed?
That's a great question. Is something that we talk about all the time between Caroline and I. So each planner is different. Some want us there just in case of an emergency or non-emergent situation where someone's needed. Some are putting our name in the welcome kit in the
Oh.
hotel rooms. Call this number if you need us. It's different for everyone, and it's a conversation that we do have with each planner and venue separately. So our clients right now are planners and venues. Um, who then venues hire us directly. Planners, some hire us directly, some hire us through their clients. So it really is a conversation between,
Mhm.
because if it were up to us, we would be, present, be able to watch everyone. Our provider could potentially see if someone's drinking too much, or if that VIP guest with, you know, history of stroke is you know, showing signs of potentially something medically dangerous. We would love to be on site, but a lot of planners want us in the back, which I, as a photographer, understand.
Yeah.
Less bodies present, the better. So it really is a conversation.
What do you bring with you on site in terms of personnel and equipment?
That's such a good question, Reagan. Well, first of all, the reason why we use nurse practitioners, physician assistants, and physicians is because they have what's called a larger scope of practice. In other words, they can do more than an EMT can do.
Mm.
They can do more than even a nurse can do. And one
Oh,
of the really important things is that they can prescribe and administer medication. And that becomes really, really critical because if you have someone at the wedding, for instance, who maybe starts having some GI symptoms and upset, it's fantastic to be able to give Pepto-Bismol, but they might actually need an IV with some Zofran. Well, Zofran's a prescription medication. And so, in order to provide that on site in real time, you need someone who is both licensed in that state to practice, but who also is able to prescribe medication. So, when our person comes on site, they bring this really beautiful doctor's kit and bag that doesn't look like a scary medic bag. And it has a bunch of different equipment that may be needed in order to take care of someone if they need stitches, if they sprain an ankle. We bring an AED in the case of someone having a heart attack, which is really important. We bring Narcan in the case of drug overdose. We bring an EpiPen in the case of some type of allergic reaction. And then we bring a suite of medications, both over the counter and some prescription, that our providers can prescribe on site and take care of folks. The last thing we do is make sure that we have some IVs on site. So we'll do that in the case of a medical need if someone needs an IV. But we also have expanded our business to provide wellness lounge activations and services. So if folks want to do a wellness lounge or a recovery lounge experience for their guest or bridal party, or just privately for the couple, in their
yeah.
suite, we do that kind of thing as well. So our provider brings all that and more.
I love how you mentioned all of these things that an EMT can't even do. So without your services, if we have an emergency, we call the EMT, and you know, they still have the time from leaving the venue to the hospital until they can get the care that you're able to offer immediately. And all of the medications and scenarios that you've rattled off in I think I've been doing this maybe 17 years now. I've experienced almost every single one. And it's terrifying and it's scary. And as the captain of the ship on the wedding day, as the event planner, you do feel a tremendous sense of responsibility and liability. So the peace of mind that gives is enormous.
Yeah, and I wanna mention something. I've seen a few, planners on Instagram saying they're either bringing their own nurse or we talk to a lot of planners and people hand out their own medication and, I would look very carefully at insurance and, practice regulation for medical things. In general, it is not a legal practice to hand out medication, even Advil, to wedding
Oh,
clients
interesting.
as
Oh my gosh, that's crazy because every planner probably has Advil in their emergency kit.
and I'm not trying to scare you, but we've learned so much through, creating this business, that really you guys carry a lot more liability than you even probably know. And so hiring your own EMT nurse can potentially add more liability to you than without them. And so we as a team, because we have a team, we have a director of medicine, who is over all of our PAs and NPs on the wedding weekends, wedding weeks, event weeks. They carry the liability. We as a team carry that liability so you guys don't have to. Whereas someone who's just hiring a family member to be a nurse or something, it's putting them at a much higher risk of liability. Just something to think about as clients, as planners. Do you guys really want to carry that liability? It may be easier to do. I know you guys are so resourceful as wedding planners, as you have to be. You always figure things out, but this is one thing that we really want to figure out for you and take that off your plate to the point where we even are hiring. We even have aides for non-medical. Grandfather may need an aide for the wedding day. Our aide shows up dressed in a tux, fully versed in high-end weddings. So they know the timeline. They know the family shot list. So it's not just hiring an aide or hiring, a nurse. We are actually training them as a photographer would train her second shooter for that wedding event.
That's amazing. I can't tell you how many times a client has said, "Oh, well, can't you have an assistant help with the grandmother or something like that?" And I'm like, well, one, that's not why they're being paid to be there, but the liability is enormous. Also, what about for the homeowner if they're having a wedding on their private property? They have a sense of liability too.
Yeah, absolutely. I think what's really important to note is that EventDox is a medical practice. We have a
Mm,
physician at the helm who oversees all of our clinical quality, all of our protocol, make sure everyone that we hire is a licensed medical professional who has emergency medicine experience. Like, we are essentially like your doctor's office in your hometown, but we're on the go and we go to events and integrate seamlessly with luxury and ultra luxury events. So we have everything that a practice or a doctor's office would have. Most importantly, medical malpractice insurance, because if
mhm.
someone does get hurt or sick on site, and we live in a litigious society, someone gets sued, all of that, if EventDocs has been on site and one of our providers has been there, our
Well,
medical malpractice insurance policy. And so that just adds an extra layer of peace of mind and professionalism that I think the industry has been missing. EMTs are wonderful professionals, but their job is really to stabilize and then get you into a vehicle to get you to the hospital. And so that's fantastic if someone's
great
having a
point.
stroke or a heart attack or whatever. And then, on the other end of the spectrum, you have what we would call boo-boos, right? Like you just slap a Band-Aid on it and everybody's fine. I think what's really frightening and where we fill the gap is everything in between. And there's a lot between a boo-boo and having a stroke that we can manage on site and not have to call an ambulance and not have to disrupt the event and all of those, concerns.
Yeah, especially, there are some amazing properties where people will produce events and they are at least 30, 40, if not more minutes from the nearest hospital. And I really appreciate how you're pointing out that EMTs stabilize because to me, I don't know that I've even really thought about that. All they do is stabilize you until you can get care. So, yeah, I know as you're speaking, I'm thinking about like the finger that was chopped off at a wedding or the allergic reaction where the throat was closing and we had minutes. Like, I'm thinking of all of these terrifying situations. And of course, it's not something you want to frighten your clients with, but it is a reality of we're bringing potentially hundreds of people together in an environment that's remote. Everybody's imbibing and, you just never know what you could be exposed to. And also, not to mention the people who are working the event as well, who maybe have been under a tent in extreme heat for 15 hours. Those people also could be, utilizing your services.
Yeah, and at
Absolutely.
risk for sure.
Yeah, so we provide service for anyone at the event, not
Yeah.
just the client and guests. One thing I did want to speak to from what you just said about, you know, bringing fear to the clients. We have actually found the opposite. A lot of the clients who have hired us through planners have personally reached out and said, "We are so thankful for this service. We did not know this existed. It has given us such great peace of mind for so many reasons." So that's something that we did not even expect. We know it's hard for planners to pitch something new, but we actually are finding that clients are really appreciating it and making those planners seem even more important in the end.
Yeah.
So we really believe our service is setting planners apart from each other
Yeah.
in that
Well,
way.
and honestly, when you talk about it, it's like, how could we not offer this?
Yeah.
What do you say, Julie, question for you. What would you say to the host who thinks, "Oh, we don't need this?"
What would I say?
Yeah.
I would say, okay. It's one of those things where I believe everybody needs this because I'm the
Mm,
one that thought I was like, everybody needs this.
mhm.
So we're even talking to maybe not super luxury venues about having this on their contract to just have a wedding there because of the liability piece. We're finding out that it might possibly, don't quote me on this, but it might be possibly lowering insurance rates for some venues, having us as a standard on their contract. So, yeah, we're really excited to bring that peace of mind. Does that answer?
Yeah, it does. It really does. What has surprised you most? So let's talk more about just you're bringing something new to the event industry, which is just really amazing to identify something that just hasn't been done before. So what has surprised you the most? And Julie, maybe this question's for you since you're in the event industry. What has surprised you most about bringing this concept to the event industry?
I knew this was such a great missing piece, but I wasn't aware of just how quickly the top planners would grasp this idea and pitch it to their clients. I thought
Mhm.
it would take a little bit more time, and they're getting it, and they're pitching it to their clients. And so that has been surprising, just from a business standpoint. What else has been surprising is how open everyone has been, and we're so grateful when we have conversations with so many planners and venues, just how open and honest people are about their experiences with medical and wellness. And we appreciate all the transparency that they have shown us. And it just allows us to be able to help them more and
Yeah.
help their clientele more to find out more about their stress points and what we can do to really bring our service at the highest level to them.
That's great.
So,
Because I know I mean, it comes with a pretty sizable investment, but at the same time, like you said, Caroline, you are bringing your doctor's office in its entirety to your event.
Yeah, absolutely. I think these kinds of investments are going to become more and more common and eventually best practice in the industry. Folks spend a lot of money on things like security and insurance that they may not end up using. I think a lot of times people are like, "Well, I've been doing events for 20 years and we've gotten by without someone, so I think we'll be fine," right? But then you have other planners, as Julie mentioned, who really get it, and they're like, "Oh my God, this is amazing. Why didn't I have this? I want you doing every event." And by the way, like, my client's going to spend $250,000 on security, and we probably won't use that. There's a higher chance that someone's going to be nauseous and need Zofran than that there's going to be some seminal event. So, they think like this is part of standard practice. It's no different than buying insurance or having a security team or anything else that you do in
Mhm.
advance to minimize
Mhm.
risk.
Yeah, I'm thinking about I know a couple planners who've been sued just because of events that have happened and led to hospitalization at events. And, of course, these things were beyond their control, but everyone kind of got swept under into the litigation process. And it's really terrifying. And now that there's an answer, and I really like, Julie, what you were saying about some venues, and I could argue some planners might want to consider adding this into the contract. And if a client declines, they're signing a waiver. And so that's just an
yeah,
added layer of protection. But we didn't have this before. We
right.
didn't have that answer to combat the risk.
Right, and we do have a few planners on retainer essentially that we are a part of every wedding that an event that they do because of that. So,
Very good to know.
yes, yes. I mean, that's the goal, right? I mean, for this to be a standard service for everyone so that
Mhm.
you don't aren't interrupted.
Mhm.
I'm not gonna name names, but I mean, it's happened to me this year at weddings, and many weddings last year where there were ambulances. I mean, I have 4 weddings last year where there were ambulances called that maybe shouldn't have or
Right.
didn't need to be, should have because there was no doctor there,
It
but
could have been
a
avoided.
and exactly, and something I wanna touch on too is, we get a lot of, "Oh, my uncle's a doctor, he's gonna be at the wedding," or, "My
Uh,
brother's a doctor, he's at the wedding." Well, that's great, but a, their liability insurance does not cover them at a wedding.
mhm.
B, they're going to be drinking and imbibing and having fun. Do you really want them to be that guy? You know?
Right. Right.
And C, like we are there to take that off of everyone's plate. A lot of people ask me to come to their weddings not as a photographer, right? And that's such a relief if I just want to enjoy the day. So it's kind of the same notion. And our service is not inexpensive, but we believe it's such a high standard of service, you're not just getting a doctor, you're getting the whole team, the
Yeah.
trained high level event, team service, hospitality service
Mhm.
that, we believe it's worth it and more. So,
It sounds like it, and with many of these luxury events, it's the cost of it is truly a drop in the bucket, right, compared
yes,
to the
exactly.
overall investment. So, and when you're
Exactly.
talking about somebody's life, truly, it's absolutely necessary. Let's switch
Yeah.
and talk about your journeys just as women, business owners. Let's talk about your bravery and reinvention. Just I like to get behind the lens of who it is who are building these amazing businesses and have been through so much. So you both in your intake form shared some very personal examples of bravery. Julie, you mentioned walking away from a toxic relationship and doing healing work, and Caroline, you shared that you struggle with postpartum anxiety and depression, and had to ask for help to get well. And so there's a lot of strength in being honest about those chapters, and especially as women building something meaningful. So, how have those challenges that you've overcome shaped the way you show up in business? Let's start with you, Caroline.
Well, thanks for talking about this, Reading, because I think it's so important. And let me just start by saying one of the most refreshing things about entering this industry is how female dominated it is. I'm so accustomed to being in industries that are, significantly led by men. And so that's been really amazing. And I've just had such an incredible experience meeting fellow women business owners in the event industry. So I think it's important that we talk about these things. I read a stat recently that a majority of event business owners are also moms, which I thought was really
Mm.
interesting. And of course, I'm a mom. I have two young kids. One just turned 3 last week, and one's 4.5. So I had them really, really close together. Not necessarily planned, but very much a blessing. But after my second, I really, really struggled with postpartum depression and anxiety. And it took a while for me to really realize just how bad things had gotten
Uh-huh.
and to ask for that help. And, I think those moments of resilience in your personal life really prepare you for all the ups and downs of entrepreneurship. And once you've been through something like that and seen it to the other side,
Yeah.
there's like no challenge that intimidates you anymore. It's not to say that it's not hard. It's just that I know that everything that comes our way from a business perspective is figure outable. And that's a technical term. But, Julie and I both have that mindset, I think, and that's been really, really helpful. And I think a lot of that is because we've both been through some challenging and traumatic things in our lives
Yeah.
and came out the other side, and now we get to work together, and it's such a pleasure and a privilege. And there's no challenge we can't overcome knowing what we've been through personally.
Julie?
I look at Caroline. Caroline is so well spoken and just I look up to her so much, by the
Oh.
way. And everything she just said, wish I could say so eloquently. I'm not as eloquent with my words, Caroline. But yeah, I mean, look, we've all been through so many, pardon my French, shitty things in life. And, it just, business work is like nothing compared to life, right? I mean, real life stuff is
Right.
way harder than work stuff. Like she said, we can figure this out. We can figure anything out. And so I think it does really prepare you um for the struggles in work and all of that, and it kind of puts things in perspective, right? I mean,
Mhm.
the most important thing in life is family and kids and staying alive and healthy and just enjoying people, right? That's the most
Mhm.
important thing. and
Mhm.
and the fact that we're able to bring that to our business and just elevate that connection that people have on their most special days, like that's part of it, right?
Yeah.
I'm constantly trying to make people happier and more connected, and I think bringing those struggles to voice, like speaking it out loud, is one way that we really connect. So I
Mhm.
think we've experienced that personally, especially at
Yeah.
Engage. We really connected with a lot of Caroline went to her first Engage in February, and we really connected with a lot of people by speaking about our struggles. So I think it's
Mhm.
one thing that we as women especially should not be afraid to talk about. It's
Right.
something that everybody can relate to it, right?
Yeah.
Everybody has struggles of some sort.
Yeah.
And so it makes us stronger. It makes us more connected and makes us better moms and
Yeah.
better friends, right? Because
Yeah.
yeah,
I think that's a big reason too why I love this podcast and what connects so many people behind the scenes who listen to this podcast is we're exposing vulnerabilities and struggles and just real things that all of us are going through in life and running our businesses and navigating the industry, et cetera. And so it's cool to know like, okay, we're all human. We're all going through these things. So for the women who are listening, and I know we keep talking about women, but I do think we can speak to this because we are women, okay? And I do think women go through things a little differently than men do. Um, but for the women listening who are going through a hard season personally and they're trying to build something professionally, what would you want them to hear?
yeah, I think give yourself some time.
Uh-huh.
Building something, when I was breastfeeding Liv the first year postpartum, I don't know that I had depression, but it was very exhausting. I had one of my busiest wedding years, breastfeeding during weddings and all this crazy stuff. It was really challenging. And one thing I didn't give myself was enough time to just relax and heal and just take time out, go for walks, like give yourself space and time to just do nothing.
Uh-huh.
I think we as business owners, it's so easy to get caught up in the work, 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 right? I'm really good at that. I can get really caught up in the work and knock it out and get things done. What I'm not so great at is that taking time to just be. And it's you
Mhm.
feel guilty as a mom, as a woman, right?
Mhm.
You feel
Mhm.
I'm supposed to be with my child. I'm supposed to be doing
Mhm.
this and this and this and this. So I think my advice would be just like breathe and be. I
Yeah,
know that sounds, hippy dippy, but that's the truth. What do
I
you
love
think,
that.
Caroline?
Well, I'm bringing my healthcare hat. um, I would say, like, don't be afraid to take medication if you need it. I mean,
Mhm.
even as someone who works in the healthcare industry for most of my career, when I had postpartum anxiety and depression, I was like terrified to get on an SSRI. And I don't think enough people talk about that and the stigma that's still associated with being on medication. And so both of my healthcare event docs hat on and my personal hat on, like, don't be afraid to use the tools that are available to you and at your disposal to get you through a tough time. It doesn't have to be forever. Just because you need a little medication does not mean you're going to be on it for the rest of your life. But like, there are tools and resources available to help you get to the other side, and it does get better,
Mhm.
and don't be afraid to use them.
I love that. Thank you for saying that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
To wrap up our conversation, I want to ask you what would you like planners, hosts, creative entrepreneurs to understand about event docs? What is the main takeaway?
I think the main takeaway is we want to be your medical and wellness partner for your events. So anything medical, wellness, aid, IV, anything, reach out to us. We can take care of it for you across the US and in several other countries in Europe and beyond. So anything, we want to take it off your plate for you so you don't have to worry about it. I think that's the biggest takeaway. What do you think, Caroline?
Yeah, I agree. I think I would say, planners have so much on their plate and so much to manage. So if you're looking to delegate or offload something that you feel like brings a lot of stress, this is a really, really great option that helps in terms of peace of mind, but also elevates you as a planner and the experience for your clients and guests. And we want to do that for you. We want to take care of you and your team too and get this off your plate.
Great. If someone listening has a question or wants to understand more, where should they go?
They can email us at info@eventdocs.com or they can reach out on Instagram, but email is always best. Yeah.
Well, I'll make sure to link everything in the show notes. But, ladies, thank you so much for joining. And I hope to have you soon at a wedding.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Reagan.
Reagan. This has been great. Appreciate you having us.
Yeah, thanks so much.